At 35, Clara Bennett had built her life around the echoes of the past, a historian whose passion for medieval Europe had earned her acclaim, but left her with a lingering emptiness she couldn't name, a sense that her own history was incomplete. She stood in the cobblestone square of a remote English village, its timber-framed houses untouched by time, her notebook clutched tightly as she sought answers about a 14th-century family rumored to have shaped the region's fate. The villagers whispered of curses and forgotten legacies, their eyes wary, and Clara felt the weight of their secrets, her own doubts mirroring the gray sky above. Then, a horse appeared at the edge of the square, its chestnut coat gleaming, its steady gaze fixed on her, as if it knew the historical mystery she'd come to unravel, and the past life she'd yet to discover. Ever felt a connection to the past you can't explain? Like if Clara's journey resonates, and keep watching to uncover her hidden history. Clara Bennett had always felt the past as a living thing, its whispers woven into the pages of history she studied. But at 35, standing in the cobblestone square of a remote English village, those whispers felt louder, more personal, as if they were calling her name. A historian of medieval Europe, she'd spent her career piecing together the stories of others, her articles on 14th-century societies earning her respect in academic circles, but leaving her with an unshakable emptiness, a void she couldn't explain. A sense that her own history was incomplete, a puzzle missing its final piece. The village, with its timber-framed houses and ancient well, seemed frozen in time, a relic of the medieval world she loved. But its air was heavy with secrets, the villagers' sidelong glances and murmured tales of curses and forgotten legacies adding to the weight of her task. She'd come to uncover the truth about a family said to have shaped the region's fate, a lineage tied to a historical mystery that had eluded scholars for centuries, but the deeper she dug, the more she felt the past pressing against her, as if it demanded to be remembered. Clara walked the village's narrow lanes, her boots clicking against the uneven stones, her notebook clutched tightly as she sketched the layout of the square, noting the faded carvings on the well, symbols that hinted at rituals long abandoned. The sky above was a muted gray, the air cool and damp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and earth. And Clara pulled her scarf tighter, her mind racing with questions. What had happened to the family? Why had their story been erased? And why did she feel such a visceral connection to this place? She'd always been methodical, her research a careful dance of facts and evidence, but here, in this medieval village, her instincts felt sharper, her heart heavier, as if the past was not just a subject to study, but a part of her she'd yet to uncover. She thought of her mother, who died when Clara was young, leaving behind only a locket with a strange symbol, a symbol she now recognized in the village's carvings, a clue to her own identity journey that she couldn't ignore. The horse appeared again, its chestnut coat a warm contrast against the gray stone, standing at the edge of a lane that led out of the village, its steady gaze fixed on her, its presence both calming and unsettling, as if it knew something she didn't. Clara had noticed it in the square earlier, its mane catching the faint light, but now, as it pawed the ground, its breath visible in the chilly air, she felt a pull, an urge to follow. Her historian's curiosity blending with something deeper, something primal. She walked toward it, her steps hesitant, the horse turning to lead her down the lane, its hooves a soft rhythm against the earth, guiding her toward a field where the remnants of an old manor house stood, its walls crumbled, but its foundation marked by the same symbols she'd seen on the well. Clara's pulse quickened. The horse stopping at the edge of the ruins, its eyes meeting hers, and she felt a shiver, not from the cold, but from a memory that wasn't hers, a fleeting vision of a woman in medieval dress, standing in this very spot, her hands clutching a locket identical to the one Clara's mother had left her. She knelt by the foundation, her fingers brushing the weathered stone, the symbols beneath her touch, a bridge to a past she didn't fully understand, but could feel in her bones, the horse's presence a quiet anchor in the storm of her thoughts. The villagers had spoken of a curse tied to the family, a tragedy that had erased their name, But Clara sensed there was more. A story of resilience, of survival, that the horse seemed to want her to uncover. She pulled her notebook from her bag, sketching the symbols with trembling hands, the horse grazing nearby. Its calm demeanor, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. Clara had come to the village seeking history, but now, guided by this horse, she was beginning to unearth her own past life. A journey that felt as daunting as it was inevitable. The medieval village a mirror to the identity she'd yet to claim. Ever felt drawn to a place you've never been? Like if Clara's historical mystery resonates, and share your own connection to the past in the comments. Clara Bennett had always believed the past was a puzzle to be solved, its pieces scattered across time, waiting for a historian's careful hands to reassemble them. But at 35, kneeling by the ruins of an old manor house on the outskirts of a remote English village, she felt the past as a living force, its weight pressing into her chest, as if it demanded to be felt, not just understood. The medieval village, with its cobblestone lanes and timber-framed houses, had drawn her in with the promise of a historical mystery, a 14th-century family whose legacy had been erased, their story buried under whispers of curses and forgotten tragedies. But now, as Clara traced the symbols etched into the manor's foundation, symbols that matched the locket her mother had left her, she realized this journey was as much about her own identity as it was about the past she'd come to study. The air was cool, the sky a heavy gray, and the scent of damp earth mingled with the faint tang of decay. The ruins a silent witness to the centuries that had passed since the family's fall. The horse stood nearby, its chestnut coat a warm glow in the muted light, grazing on the sparse grass that grew between the stones. Its presence a quiet constant that had guided Clara from the village square to this forgotten place. Its steady gaze a reminder that she wasn't alone in this identity journey. She'd followed it here, her boots sinking into the muddy field, her notebook heavy in her hands, and the vision she'd glimpsed, a woman in medieval dress, clutching a locket identical to hers, had left her trembling, the line between past and present blurring in a way that both thrilled and unnerved her. Clara had always been grounded in facts, her career built on evidence and reason, but the horse's guidance felt like something beyond logic, a connection to a past life she couldn't explain, yet couldn't deny, its calm demeanor a contrast to the storm of emotions brewing within her. She thought of her mother, whose death had left Clara with more questions than answers, and wondered if this village, this horse, held the key to understanding not just the family's story, but her own. She rose, her knees stained with mud, and followed the horse as it moved toward a grove of ancient oaks at the edge of the field, its hooves a soft rhythm against the earth, leading her to a clearing where a stone marker stood, half buried in the soil, its surface worn but etched with the same symbols she'd seen before. A circle intersected by a cross, a symbol of protection, of lineage. Clara's breath caught, her fingers brushing the stone, the vision returning with a clarity that made her heart race. The woman in medieval dress now joined by a child. Their faces blurred but their emotions sharp, a mix of fear and defiance as they fled the manor, the locket clutched tightly in the woman's hand. Clara stumbled back, her notebook falling to the ground, the past life she'd glimpsed feeling more real than the present, the horse nudging her gently with its muzzle, its warmth grounding her as the vision faded, leaving her with a single, unshakable truth. She was tied to this family, to this village in ways she'd never imagined. The villagers had spoken of a curse, a tragedy that had erased the family's name. But Clara now saw it differently, a story of survival, of a woman who'd fled to protect her child, a legacy that had lived on in secret, passed down through generations until it reached her, the locket a tether to that history. She sat against the stone marker, the horse grazing nearby, its presence a quiet comfort as she sketched the symbols in her notebook, her hands steadier. Now, the pieces of the puzzle coming together. The horse had led her here, to this clearing, to this truth, and Clara felt a shift within her, the emptiness she'd carried for years beginning to fill with a sense of belonging, of purpose. She'd come to the village seeking answers about a forgotten family, but now, guided by the horse, she was uncovering her own past, a historical mystery that was rewriting her story as much as it was revealing theirs. Clara Bennett stood in the clearing, the ancient oaks of the medieval village towering around her, their gnarled branches casting long shadows as the gray sky darkened, a chill wind carrying the scent of rain and the promise of a storm. At 35, she'd spent her life as a historian chasing the threads of history. But now, in this remote English village, those threads had woven themselves into her own story. The stone marker beneath her fingers, a bridge to a past life she could no longer deny. The symbols etched into the stone, a circle, intersected by a cross, matched the locket her mother had left her, a relic of the 14th century family she'd come to study, a family whose legacy had been erased by a whispered curse, but whose survival Clara now felt in her bones, a historical mystery that had become her identity journey. Her notebook lay open on the ground, its pages fluttering in the wind, sketches of the symbols a testament to the truth she'd uncovered. But the storm brewing above mirrored the storm within her, the weight of her discovery threatening to overwhelm her. The horse, with its chestnut coat gleaming despite the fading light, pawed the earth at the edge of the clearing, its steady gaze fixed on a narrow path Clara hadn't noticed, a trail that wound deeper into the grove, its entrance shrouded in brambles but marked by a faint glow, as if the past itself were calling her forward. The horse had guided her this far, from the village square to the manor ruins, to the stone marker where visions of a woman and child had flooded her mind, and now it seemed to beckon her once more, its mane rippling as it stepped onto the path, its presence a quiet insistence that Clara couldn't ignore. She followed, her heart pounding, the brambles scratching at her coat as she pushed through, the path leading to a sunken hollow where the remnants of a chapel stood, its walls crumbled but its altar intact, a stone slab etched with the same symbols, and at its center, a hollowed space where something had once rested. A locket, perhaps, or a token of the family's survival. Clara's breath caught, the vision returning with a force that made her knees buckle. The woman in medieval dress now kneeling at this very altar, her child beside her. Their faces clearer now, the woman's eyes mirroring Clara's own, her hands placing a locket into the hollowed space, a final act of defiance against the curse that sought to erase them. The storm broke above, rain pouring through the oaks, soaking Clara's coat. But she barely noticed, her fingers trembling as she reached into the hollow, finding nothing but the imprint of the locket, its shape a perfect match to the one she wore around her neck. The horse stood at the chapel's entrance, its eyes fixed on her, and Clara felt a surge of clarity, the cavallo's guidance a tether to the past she'd been seeking, a reminder that this journey wasn't just about uncovering history, but about claiming her place within it, about understanding the strength of the woman who'd survived to ensure her lineage endured. Thunder rumbled, the chapel's walls trembling, and Clara clutched the locket at her neck, the vision shifting, the woman fleeing the village, her child in her arms, the locket a promise of survival, a legacy that had lived on through generations, through Clara's mother to her. She sank to her knees, the rain mixing with tears on her face, the horse nudging her gently, its warmth a comfort in the chaos, its presence a symbol of the resilience she'd inherited, the past life she'd finally embraced. The villagers' tales of a curse had been wrong. This wasn't a story of tragedy, but of survival, of a family that had defied erasure, and Clara, through the horse's quiet guidance, had uncovered that truth. Her identity journey complete as the storm raged around her, the medieval village a witness to the history she'd reclaimed. The storm had passed, leaving the medieval village bathed in a soft, golden light, the ancient oaks glistening with rain, as the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the sunken chapel where Clara Bennett had uncovered the truth of her past. At 35, she stood at the edge of the grove, her coat still damp, the locket around her neck a tangible link to the 14th century family she'd come to study, a family whose survival she now carried within her, her hands steady as she brushed the final traces of mud from the stone altar, its symbols a quiet testament to the history she'd reclaimed. The historian, who had arrived in the village seeking answers about a forgotten lineage, had found something far greater, a past life that explained the emptiness she'd felt for years, a connection to her mother, to her own identity, that the village's cobblestone lanes and whispered legends had helped her uncover. Clara's journey back to the village square was slow, her steps lighter now, the weight of her questions replaced by a newfound sense of belonging. The notebook in her bag filled with sketches and notes that told not just the family's story but her own, a historical mystery that had rewritten her understanding of herself. The horse followed at a distance, its chestnut coat catching the sunlight, its steady gaze a quiet farewell as it stopped at the edge of the field. Its role in Clara's identity journey complete, its presence a symbol of the resilience she'd inherited, a guide that had led her through the shadows of the past to the light of understanding. She paused to watch it, the horse grazing peacefully, and felt a deep gratitude, its guidance a thread that had woven through her quest from the manor ruins to the chapel, reminding her that history wasn't just in the artifacts, but in the lives that carried it forward. Back in her university office weeks later, Clara was a changed woman, her desk now a space of reflection rather than pursuit. The locket displayed on a small stand, its surface catching the light as she wrote her findings, not for acclaim, but for the truth it held, a story of survival, of a woman who'd defied a curse to ensure her lineage endured, a legacy that had lived on through Clara's mother to her. She'd shared the story with her colleagues, their awe genuine as they traced the symbols she'd documented, but Clara no longer sought their validation. The village's lessons etched into her like the carvings on the stone. A lesson in belonging, in the power of history to heal, to connect. She kept a small sketch of the horse on her desk, its mane a burst of warmth in her memory, a reminder of the historical mystery that had shown her who she was, a journey that had taught her to listen to the past, not just study it. Clara walked to her window, the city stretching out below, and watched a group of students pass by, their laughter a reminder of the life she'd built, now enriched by the past she'd uncovered, the medieval village a chapter that had closed one story and opened another. She thought of her mother, whose locket had been the key to this journey, and smiled. The emptiness she'd carried for so long now filled with a sense of lineage, of purpose. The horse's quiet guidance, a gift that had led her to herself, to a history that felt alive, vibrant, hers. The past was no longer just a subject to study. It was a part of her, a legacy she'd carry forward, a connection to the village, to the family, to the woman who'd ensured Clara would one day stand here, whole. Clara's emotional journey proves that the past can heal the present. If her discovery in the medieval village stirred you, hit the like button now. It's a nod to everyone finding their roots. Subscribe to join our community of dreamers, where stories like this spark connection. Share with someone needing closure. What's helped you connect with your past? Share in the comments and let's grow together.